hardcore boxing fans out there, how are you doing? Big Porky here, the voice of hardcore boxing, and I hope you've subscribed as well, or I'll be coming to pay you a visit.
Welcome to part two. I'm just waiting for Julian to click on. He should be here in a second. There you go. Pompous Julian. You there, mate?
I am, Russell. So just before we jump into this one, do you mind if I just say a couple of minutes about Chad Gaynor?
I don't know yet. Well,
right. So anybody who watches Porky's Corner, some of you might have heard about was some really sad news this week about Chad Gaynor, who passed away. Was 32 years old. He was a phenomenal talent, and I'm not going to overstate this because I wasn't his coach and I wasn't a close friend. But I did know Chad quite well. We used to go over to the Millennium Gym, Jamie Kennedy's gym. There was Max Hughes, there was Chad Gaynor, there was Nav Mansouri. And Chad would spar so many times with Tony Aitson, who was a kid I trained, and Gary Sykes. And I just want to just say genuinely what a lovely young man he was. Really, really awful news. And my condolences to his family and his friends. And anybody who knew him. He was a fantastic fighter, but he had a real nice spirit about him, and he had a real nice, friendly way. And at 32 years old, for a young kid to pass away, it's kind of been on my mind since I heard the news at the beginning of the week. And God bless you, Chad.
Yeah, 15-2, and he was a banger, wasn't he?
He was an absolute banger. So just a little story about Chad. So he used to come over to Central, and I've got some videos of him sparring Sykes on my hard drive, and I was going to watch him last night, and I'm like, no, not yet. But if there is any of his family out there who would want a copy of the video of Chad down at Central, just let me know, and I'll send you over. I'll put it on a stick for you or something, because sometimes people like those memories, don't they? But I'm sure there's a lot of footage out there of Chad anyway. But I'll tell you a little story. So in 2009, it was co-managed by Chris Aston and Steve Wood. And the fighters I used to train were co-managed by Chris and Steve Wood. They all were, there were Jamie Kennedy's lads, Chris Aston's lads, Sean O'Hagan, Josh Warrington, those guys. And there was a show in Barnsley. And we all used to hand up for each other. And Jamie Kennedy asked me if I'd work with him in the corner for Chad's second pro fight. I think Chad was 18 years old, and you'll know this name, Russell. So Chad was fighting a guy called Carl Allen.
Yeah.
And Carl Allen was a real tough journeyman who at the time just didn't get stopped.
Yeah.
I think he lost about 25 fights on points, back to back to back to back. He was really, really tough guy from Wolverhampton. Sykes beat him, Tyrone Nurse beat him. And I was handing up for Jamie Kennedy, and I'd seen Chad spar, but I'd not seen him obviously fight. He'd only had one fight up to that point. And Chad landed a right hand on Carl Allen in the first round. And, just some punches you remember they stay with you.
Yeah.
And he landed this massive shot on Carl Allen. And he did Carl Allen in the first round. And Carl Allen never got stopped in the first round, certainly when he was younger. And I remember thinking at the time, I remember Jamie and Chad. Chad was just like, oh, he was jumping up and down. He was a kid, and it was a savage knockout. And he really was a phenomenal boxer. I know he did a lot of sparring with Kell Brook, and I think Kell Brook said at the time that's the hardest he's ever been hit. And things happen in life, and I know it was 9 years ago he broke his neck in a car accident, and he was never quite the same again. But that was my memory. I just remember the right hand he hit Carl Allen with. It was savage. And the wars he used to have with Tony Aitson Jr., who was an unbeaten kid who I worked with, another one of these kids who just drifts away from boxing. Him and Tony used to spar. And it was brilliant. It was brutal. Both big punches.
Paid to see it, wouldn't you?
It was brilliant, mate. And such a nice young kid. So again, I've got the footage. If anybody from his family would like to see that, I'd give you a copy. But nice young kid. But more importantly than being a good boxer and talented fighter, it's you got to send the condolences out to his family, haven't you? I know Scott knew him as well, didn't he? Scott knew
Yeah,
him well.
Scott's asked me to do something. I'm going to do something with Scott. He's in Jamaica at the moment. When he gets back, I'm going to do something with Scott for on
Well,
Channel
Scott
5.
will know exactly what I'm saying because Scott
Yeah,
knows
yeah,
him a lot better than I did.
yeah.
And it was just, I'm not bigging this up because generally if people pass away at a young age, if you don't have anything nice to say about them, you just don't say anything, dear.
Yeah.
And I've genuinely been choked this week, and my condolences to his family and his friends, and my heart goes out to all his former teammates like Nav, like Maxie Hughes, and his former
Kel
coach,
Brook will be devastated. Kel Brook.
Jamie Kennedy. Yeah, it was just horrendous, and the kid was just
Been on
he
your
had a,
mind all week, hasn't it?
yeah, it's been. I probably look a bit emotional. It's just been he's not the first of a young boxer who I've known who's passed away at such a young age. It happens, and yeah, it's heartbreaking, mate. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, yeah. It's been an odd week for media and people around it. People treading on eggshells and worrying, and because now we've got like well, they're not good. Matchroom are not happy with all these other YouTubers who are jumping over. It's like Warren Earn and YouTubers and other YouTubers that they're all divided, aren't they? Nobody knows what to do or who to say out to, and the only way to stop it is, I think, for Warren and Earn to work together. Really, do you?
I think they really need to for the sake of boxing, because if you look at Frank's stable and you look at Eddie's stable, I mean,
Going in different directions at the moment, aren't they?
But there's some mouth-watering fights between those two, and you know what? There becomes a point where you've got to say, look, we've got to do what's the best for boxing. We really have to do. The fans have been great to us. So Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren and all the famous fighters who they represent, they've made so much money and had so much fame from boxing. And people always talk about, one of the key things what you always hear boxers say is, I want to give something back. Whether it's I work for the Board of Control or I'm going to be a coach or a referee, I want to give something back. Well, isn't it time that the promoters start giving something back? Because the wealth that, Matchroom have made the money from obviously other streams and other sports, but the money that they've generated and they've made from boxing, I just think it's about time. You got to just work with people. We all work with people we don't like. It's just life.
What the value in Matchroom at 1.1 billion.
I mean,
that's the rate at the moment for what they're
but
doing.
I just think the Matchroom shows are quite slim, and I think we need that. We need that cross fertilization between Matchroom and Warren. I mean, how many times have they actually worked together in the past 10 years?
12 or 13.
I mean, come on, look at the light heavyweights and look at the heavyweights on the roster of each one. And
that was Super Six, couldn't they?
Do you know what I always think about as well? That I know they're making a ton of money for the Ngannou fight, and they make money for the for the Usyk fight and stuff. But what if it happens? But what I always struggle with, and this is probably the socialist in me, is 100% of something is 100%, but no percent of a billion is nothing. It's nothing. And what I mean by that is when they start to debate about 70-30, 65-35, and so many fights haven't been made because fighters haven't made concessions and managers and promoters don't want to give ground, they don't want to make concessions. I know I'm talking about some kind of nirvana and some kind of perfect world, some utopia, but wouldn't you rather have 30% of a massive number than 100% of nothing? And that's what frustrates me. I don't know. I just think boxing needs some massive fights over here. We've had some brilliant fights in the States, haven't we, in the last 12 months? There've been some great, Spence Crawford and Davis and Garcia. And we've had some amazing fights in the States, but I just think we need to see some of that come over here, because as I've said before, and I preach all the time about this, you British boxing fan, not the casuals who like just a night out and an event, but your British boxing fans really moving away from traditional boxing. And we deserve better because we're all really patient, aren't we? We're all really patient. I want to see Callum Smith and Anthony Yard and Boatsi. I want to see all those guys fight each other. I want to see all the lightweights and the welterweights and the heavyweight. I want to see them fight each other. And people are going to look back at this kind of generation. And we talk about the fights, we always look back and say we never got Holmes and Foreman, we never got Bow and Lewis. But we're going to look back at this period, this 20-year, 25-year period, and we're going to say, we didn't get that, we didn't get that, we didn't get that. And we're just going to reel off fight after fight after fight after fight that we didn't make. And, I spent 20 years as a license holder, and I truly don't believe there's real reasons why you can't make these fights other than it's ego. You always, like Tyson says, he said himself, didn't he, this week in an interview, if he's abroad and he's buying something and someone wants 10 euros, he didn't say this was an example, give an example. He'll always try and knock someone down. Always, it's about getting one over on somebody, isn't it? And do you really need to do that? There's a lot of money to be made in boxing, and everybody can have a portion, but I don't know.
Well, Spencer Brown said that there's not enough money at Wembley for Tyson. There ain't enough, so that's why they've got to go to Saudi.
What's not? That's my point, though, Russell. What do they mean not enough? What figure are we talking about? What revenue? I mean, because you know me, I'm
Wembley could get 25 million, couldn't he?
So, how much is enough?
Well, if you're getting 50 million, it's double, isn't it?
But I don't.
You're alienating yourself, aren't you, in the sport?
I remember, when Tommy Hearns knocked out Roberto Duran in 1984, that brutal knockout. After Hagler had a tough night with Duran, and Hearns was in the ring, and he just said, Jim Rosenthal did the UK commentary. It was a brilliant commentary. Jim Rosenthal says, and they're saying they want Marvin Hagler. As a fan, when you watch that, 1984, your mouth's watering. And we got the fight the year after, didn't we? Just like that, Hagler Hearns, done. And then we have a fight that we talk about forever. We'll always talk about Hagler and Hearns. And I don't remember, and I was, even though I was young at the time, I was 14, I was boxing obsessed just before I turned amateur, and I used to watch his stuff all the time. I used to read Ring magazine back to front 10 times, KO magazine back to front. So I knew the business side of it, even from a young age. And I don't remember Hagler saying, I want 70%, I'm the champion. Tommy, you only get 30%. It just didn't happen, did it?
No, you never heard talk like that. Ali never used to come out with all that.
You didn't hear it, did you? You didn't hear that. People they wanted to prove they were the best. And yeah, they earned a lot of money. Of course, they earned a lot of money. They were very well. The Fab Four were very wealthy, but they didn't penny pinch, did they? To the point of, I want that. I want that. I want to be the first in the ring. I want this, and it was just those guys. And there's a reason we talk with fondness about that generation. It's not rose tinted glasses. It's not looking back and being a little bit delusional. That is actually how it was, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine talking about Muhammad Ali? You can't mention Ali without mentioning Joe Frazier, can you?
No.
You can't mention George Foreman without thinking about Ali and thinking about Kenny Norton and thinking about Joe Frazier.
Oh,
those guys were linked to history. Remembers those guys long after the money's gone, and I genuinely don't know how history is going to remember a Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua and those guys. I don't know, mate.
Well, this Joshua Wilder thing, it seems to have been being made for since 17 April. So it's like going on for 7 years. It's still not done, is it?
And we don't even know if, is Deontay Wilder even boxing now? Is he just talking about it? There's something about, it's like I said, it's a generational thing. But I know fighters fight for money. I've just been saying the Fab Four were wealthy men. They got paid a lot of money, but they didn't obsess in the percentage splits and all that kind of thing, and they just got the fights done. But
watched it with Kessler, and he could have got 60%. He just says, "No, give him 50."
But he knows what Kessler looks like on his CV. and obviously got the
He
second
wanted,
time
oh,
around.
listen, he wanted that badly, that Kessler. Oh, God.
Because it's legacy defining, isn't it? But it's also, it's not
He
just
trained
legacy.
like a Trojan for that fight.
It's not just legacy defining for fighters, that for the crowd. It's for that's something in them, isn't it? There's something competitive in them that makes them become world champions. But now, certainly the heavyweights, they get 10, 15, 20 million dollars per fight.
Listen, do you know when?
And I mean, no wonder we only see them once a year.
We don't see any of that real warrior men stuff now. I don't see it. You know when people see Crotch on his channel, right? He's so funny and dry, isn't he, on his channel and all that. But do you know what? He is an animal. He is a human animal in the gym, and a frightening man in that ring. Honestly, he is a scary man. Do you know when he got dropped against Taylor? I goes, what was that like when he got dropped? He said, "All right, game on." And he hunted him down, didn't he? But he was getting peppered, wasn't he?
I saw the highlights the other day.
Oh,
I've not seen it for a while. And he
watch,
looked like...
Watch that fight. That's a proper fight when you're digging deep and biting on your gum. And I could see him right round 7. He kept biting even down even more.
That's why
I don't see that from anybody now.
Leonard and Hearns is my favourite fight, because I just remember Leonard, he's got his...
We remember the great fights, don't we?
And Leonard was behind on points. His eye was shut.
Yeah.
He was tired. And he just found something, didn't he? He found something.
They find it, don't they, them guys, don't they?
And we remember it, don't we? This isn't, again, we're not...
Gatti.
The Gatti and Ward fight, you just remember it. And what are we going to remember? What will we remember? Because Tyson Fury's career's not over, by the way. He could... Hopefully we get the Usyk fight, and he puts an exclamation mark on the undisputed, and then we want 3 or 4 defenses. That's fine, but if you want just the money, again, like I said in part 1, you go after the money, but don't tell me the greatest of all time. But the problem is with this, Russell, right? Fury will think he can beat any man. That's the mentality of a fighter. I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with a Johnny Nelson thinking he can beat Usyk. He's a fighter. He believes as a fighter he can beat anybody. But what happens is it then becomes a narrative. And we're hearing the commentators and the pundits and everybody else saying, you know what, I think he is the greatest of all time. And it's like, based on what? Based on what? Just go out.
That man agrees with us anyway.
And good. And do you know what the thing with Fury is? I've got no doubt he could have actually proved he was one of the greatest fighters of all time. You know, if he'd have been fight any man, the Gypsy King, fight any man, every 3-4 months, beat someone up. I've got no doubt he could have wiped out the entire division. But if you look at the top 10, I mean, how many fighters in the top 10 has he beat? 2, 3?
Well,
that's not a dominant. He's the best fighter, yeah, but that is not a dominant heavyweight champion, is it?
Dylan White, Chisora, Wilder. That's all in it at that current top.
Look at Mike Tyson, and I'm not a Tyson fanatic, by the way. You know that. I have perspective where Mike Tyson's concerned. But when you looked at Mike Tyson, 1989, right, 1990, you look at the top 10, and you go, he's beat Tucker, he beat Biggs, you know. He beat Pinky Thomas, he beat Burbick, and he beat all those guys in the top 10, or he beat most of the guys in the top 10, didn't he? And that's called being a dominant heavyweight champion.
Joshua did, if you want to talk like that.
Well, let's give Joshua his props, but you've got to look down at the top 10 and say, beat him, didn't need to beat him because so I beat him, and start ticking it off. But as we look at the top 10 now, there are kids out there who, I think Tyson beats them all, but he hasn't beaten them. So he's not dominant, because you don't know for sure he's the number 1 in the world, because he hasn't beat the majority of the top contenders. Whereas we knew that Mike Tyson, but certainly Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes and those guys and Rocky Marciano, we knew they were the best because they'd effectively beaten anybody who was worth beating. And he hasn't done that, and it's such a shame. And who's to blame? I mean, he keeps saying he's his own man, so he's got to shoulder that blame himself, hasn't he?
Yeah. They've said that they've knocked millions back to have booze and gambling and cigarette tobacco companies endorsed Tyson Fury, endorsed them, all that. They're saying they've knocked millions back. What do you reckon?
Well, I think it's not. It's the right thing for them to say right now, because they're now obviously making a lot of money over in Saudi Arabia. So alcohol and all this kind of stuff is really frowned upon, alcohol, gambling, etc. But you only have to do a quick Google of Tyson Fury endorsements. Try it out. We got the Furiosity drink, which they were going to expand as a brand, and that would include food and alcohol. That's gone quiet now. The alcohol bit's gone quiet. That's online. It's out there. And also, I think one of the endorsements he had about 18 months ago was Betfred, gambling. So
that's sponsored by Free Bets, isn't it?
So it's all there, and this is what I was talking about in part one. This is the hypocrisy, Russell. Okay, this is the hypocrisy. You're saying it now because His Excellency, which is all we're hearing lately, His Excellency is watching. So you can either get endorsements for a few million, or you can literally make this crazy, crazy money that you're making now in Saudi Arabia. And all of a sudden they become God-fearing men, you know, no fornication, no alcohol, no gambling. And it's just an act, and it's a load of rubbish. So
I'm disappointed the slagging UK off compared to Saudi.
I don't like that. Yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, it was preaching about there's zero crime in Saudi Arabia. Why is that?
They kill you, don't they, if you do out wrong over there, don't they? They'll throw you off.
Yeah, listen, we get so many things wrong. We can't criticize, you know, other cultures and other governments, because we get so many things wrong. But all I heard on that interview was just effectively now it's the emperor's new clothes, which is Saudi's great, Saudi's amazing. You got to come here. This is where it's happening. And UK, we're really soft on crime. We're really crap on this. We're really crap on that. We're really rubbish on that. And it's almost like they're talking like Saudi Arabia is the most beautiful, harmonious place to live. Try telling that to women who need their husband's permission to learn to drive. They need it in writing.
Well, that's not good. You
And
can't
they need
their husband's anyway.
They need their husband's permission to travel abroad. They need their husband's permission to effectively do anything. So
is it right? You get hammered for having alcohol over there, apparently.
Yeah. So is that progress? You know, I don't know enough about it, but I can read.
Well, Tyson says alcohol is a class A drug if it were invented now. Is that brainwashed?
They're saying what they're saying, aren't they? But it's like
chameleons, mate. You've got to give them credit.
Listen,
chameleons.
One of the things that I've always been consistent about, buddy, when I'm on here, is I always talk about history revisionists, don't I? And they're wiping out all the past, and they're wiping out all the things they stand for and all the things that they've said. And they're saying what they're saying. They're paying lip service to all this. They're being very dutiful because there's insane money around. But, you know, wasn't John Fury, who was a God-fearing man, wasn't he talking about sodomizing KSI recently?
What's that? Oh, bumming him. Yeah.
You just say it as it is, Russell.
I'll just
bugging him.
I've got no filter. Yeah, he wasn't about doing that, wasn't he? And other vulgar things and that. Yeah, he's like a mouse over there now anyway, he's Hulk Hogan Tash.
When you talk about Jesus Christ and you're saying our Tommy is going to do, was it Jake Paul's missus, and going to bend
Like
her over, going to do her like a dog, lovely, and everybody thought that was funny. And now you're on AFL and Boxing King Media and you're preaching about morality.
Well,
listen, we're all men and we all say certain things, but what I don't do is I don't align myself as an ambassador of goodwill and an ambassador of good taste. You just certain things you just keep quiet about, don't
you? The undercard, Adelaide and Wardrobe, they're getting $1 million each.
That's a great payday. That is one of the things what would be good about these events. If there's plenty of money, then there's plenty of money for the undercard fighters as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a phenomenal payday if that's true. And it's a good fight, isn't it? I think it's on paper, it's the fight of the night. I'm not interested in the Takams and Bakolis and.
I am. I want to see that fight because
I don't know
we hear all sorts of gym stories, don't we, about Bacoli and this and that. How is this like bogeyman, and Billy Nelson seems to believe in him, and he's a boxing man. I'm gonna keep.
I like Billy. Always had
He's
good
a
time.
boxing man, though, isn't he? He is, isn't he?
Yeah, I like Billy. I've always had time for him. We used to chat often, and he's a good guy. But the Takam, I mean, how many times do we have to wheel Carlos Takam out? Come on.
Yeah, he's a gatekeeper, isn't he now?
He's just a name that we know. He's somebody that we know, and
Well,
I'm not
tried
gonna
the AJ fight, but apparently they were saying that they didn't want to risk him. Eddie didn't want to risk him. And Bricktop's come out tonight, and he said that Joshua's in a dark place because of all bullshit Eddie Earns put him in. Well, I'm going to say this. If Joshua wanted to go to a dark place, why didn't you go watch Catterall and Linares the other night? Because that were a dark place, wasn't it?
Well, I took your word for it because I was. Where was it the week? I said to you, I went out. I can't remember where I went. I think me and Anna went out. Obviously, it sounds really bad. I can't remember what I did. I went to the cinema. I went to watch the Killers of the Flower Moon, and so that's how much I thought that was going to be a great event and a great fight. And you and about 3 other people told me the fight was dog shit. So I've not even watched it, mate. I've not watched the highlights. And Catterall is a very, very good boxer, but Linares is well past his best, and sounded like a glorified move around to me. But I think Anthony Joshua, I think going to a dark place. I think he is a young man who's struggling. I mean, we all saw the meltdown, didn't we, after the second Usyk fight? I didn't see anything like it. That was a bit awkward to watch. It was a bit cringe. It was a bit like, don't want to watch this, but I will. And he's clearly got confidence issues, and I don't know if it's true. Apparently, he's got rid of Derek James now.
Yeah.
He's looking for something that no trainer can give him.
Well, boxer size Ben will be his 7th trainer.
What Ben Davison's good coach, but he can't give AJ what AJ needs, and he's just totally whatever he had. Like I say, I know Klitschko really hurt him, didn't he? It really hurt him, and I don't think AJ showed Tyson Fury like survival instincts against Klitschko. I think Klitschko just couldn't pull the trigger because he was a certain age and he was a safety first. He became completely safety first anyway, didn't he? But I think whilst the Klitschko fight impacted AJ's psyche, he kind of rebuilt it a little bit over the next few fights. But then I said before, Andy Ruiz just took his soul, mate. A little bit like I've said, Canelo Alvarez took Billy Joe Saunders' soul. Andy Ruiz just took AJ's soul, and they're never the same fighter ever again. Some fighters recover from beatings. Anthony Joshua never recovered from that beating because I truly think he thought it was invincible.
Yeah.
I think he did. I think he genuinely, I think he believed, he bought into the hype. He was gold medalist, etc.
I think it's Eddie's fault for gassing him up.
I think he gassed him up. I think the development path for AJ was all wrong. However, having said that, had they given him a tougher path on the way up and give him some hard 10-rounders, he might have unravelled before he even got to the main.
They gave him carte blanche, didn't they, with me? Didn't they? Endorsements. He's had it from day one, hasn't he?
Absolutely. And
not going to burst that bubble, were they?
He's a very, very fragile fighter, which is ironic because there's very few people got such a physical specimen like Anthony Joshua. I mean, he's such an imposing physical specimen, but you just know, don't you? It's a matter of time before there's another Andy Ruiz performance. It's just a matter of time.
Oh, well, who they're going to match him with now?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, who the hell do you match him with? Because, I mean, do you calculate it and do you say Zhang? Because he after all, a 40-year-old guy, 41 or whatever. You said, you know what? I think he's probably got enough maybe enough mobility to beat Azan? Because Joe Joyce was awful. Or do you put him in one of the other kids, KBL? I don't know. I don't know.
He'd like Joe Joyce up, wouldn't
Yeah, what the problem that they've got, Russell, with AJ is he didn't, at one point he was stadium fighter, and then he's dropped down to the arenas, and the ticket sales for Franklin and also the ticket sales for Elenius, they didn't go that quick, did they?
Yeah.
So they've got to put him in with somebody who the fans and the neutrals recognise to make them want to go see AJ. And the problem is, again, like we talked about money, is AJ wants paying that much money, whether it's pay-per-view or not, you get a dross undercard, don't you? So you've got to have a good main event and you've got to have a good opponent in the opposite corner. So it's the irony is they're talking about Joshua boxing on the undercard of Conor Benn, aren't they?
Oh.
That tells its own story. It's purely because AJ is a main eventer. The days are numbered.
Joshua on a Conor Benn undercard.
I mean, Joshua, former unified heavyweight champion, on the undercard of a guy who's never won a belt. You couldn't make that up, could you?
Crusher Benn and Eubank. Does it happen, Julian, December 23rd?
I think the fight will happen. You know me, I don't really want to see it, but I want the whole thing clearing up. It's not going to happen, so I've got to get over that myself. But I think the fight will happen. I think Eubank, his advisors have instructed the WBO, haven't they, not to mandate Eubank Jr. So this is where we're at with boxing now, Russell, isn't it, buddy? We now have fighters saying, "Don't mandate me."
Yeah.
Because there's a big money fight out there against a welterweight who's never won a belt. But whatever you do, don't put me in with this WBO champion who's looking pretty hot at the moment. So fighters are not wanting to be world champion now. Fighters want to be very, very rich. But it's a sign of the times.
Is it having an effect on sport that bad, like that? These
Yeah.
through these small old kids. What's going to happen to them now? These small old shows.
Well, this is what's happening now. So you've got Tommy Fury absolutely doing the right thing, but he's gone to influence boxing, YouTube boxing. You've got these kids who are all on ticket deals, who they're getting matched against guys who are losing record time after time after time after time. They're not getting developed. And we just have a small handful of fighters who are getting developed. But you've got, as I've said, you've got the Eubank Juniors saying, please don't mandate me. I don't want to fight for a world title. I mean, wow. I mean, that's mind-blowing stuff, isn't it? So the sport's in a bizarre place right now. And if you look at boxing, really, the things that we're talking about, it's more consistent with British boxers, isn't it, than the rest of the world, because they seem to be making the fights, but the British fighters are going down this quite bizarre avenue. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's worrying times, very worrying. Let's switch over to Joe G. He's had a Saudi deal for his stable and
love it.
Well, hasn't he?
Love it, absolutely love it.
It's that quiet.
Good for Joe. There are other people who can't hold their own pace, can they? So Joe's kept that to himself, got it over the line, and hopefully there's a load of money and a load of success for Joe and for all these fighters. And I keep saying this, but I hope Natasha Jonas starts making a ton of cash in the last 2 or 3 fights before she exits, because she really is a great role model.
Yeah. She's a shining beacon, isn't she?
She's just such a fantastic person, isn't she? And shut out, denied the Terry Harper rematch, pushed away. Joe was pushed away, and look where they are now. They're laughing now, aren't they?
Yeah.
But you hope that they're making some big coin now, big coin.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you see Ben Shalom's role at Sky?
I think Ben, in about 5-10 years, he'll be an entrepreneur who's doing very well in e-commerce or something like that. That guy is not he won't have longevity in boxing. Boxing's not for him. Sky shows are as bad as it can ever get.
Yeah, they've gone downhill, Sky, haven't they?
Like I said, I went out at the weekend. I went to the cinema. And I came back. I have Sky Sports. I paid for the zone for the whole year. Thought I'd done it for a month, and I cancelled it. And it's for the whole year. That's my bad. But I haven't watched the shows, mate. I've not watched them. I heard they put on another. Whilst it might have been a good performance, I think they put on another dour cruiserweight fight, didn't they?
Yeah.
They love the
Cruiserweight division's pony, innit?
It's awful. And Sky love the dour cruiserweight division, don't they?
They've got Lawrence Sikola on books, haven't they? What's it? He's not a cruiserweight though, but
Billums. I mean,
okay.
who's the guy Billum Smith's fighting next? I don't even know who he is. I don't know.
Skid Row for Sky at the moment. Skid
You know
Row.
what makes me laugh? That people, I think apparently that Akoli had a rematch clause with Billum Smith, and I saw some people online saying it's really bad, that it's disgusting how they've treated Lawrence Akoli. Lawrence Akoli deserves a rematch. What happened to the rematch with Billum Smith? I'm thinking I'd rather scrape my eyes out with a blunt fork. It's like, who wants to see Lawrence Akoli fight Billum Smith again?
Lawrence's only option now is to step up to heavyweight and have a bit of an exciting style in it. Otherwise, he's going to end up on Skid Row, isn't he?
He's the only fighter I know who throws a right hand, and before the right hand's landed, he's walking towards the guy with his arms open. He's crack, grab. Absolutely horrific to watch. He's awful to watch. Eddie Hearn getting him to a world title and making him a very wealthy young man was absolute genius.
Yeah.
It's got to be Eddie Hearn's masterpiece because, I mean, it wasn't one stinky fight, was it, on the way up?
No.
He was stinker after stinker after stinker after stinker. And, God, seems a nice kid, but that's irrelevant. We're on about boxing being entertaining. Horrendous. The cruiserweights suck. The Australian kid who's a good kid, whose name's escape me right now, just battered Jordan Thompson. Looks very good.
Jaya Pater or something, is it?
That's it, yeah, really, really good feet. Nice fast hands. But who else do you want to watch at cruiserweight?
Only him. He's the man.
I totally agree. The rest of it is just it's
Rhubarb,
terrible.
the rest of it.
Garbage, mate. It's rubbish.
It'd be like that drink that the Gad will be on tonight, rhubarb and cola.
You know something? When I mentioned this in part one, but I proper feel for the Gad at the moment. I think he's
in a dark place, bless him.
The guy's been accused of being disloyal. What has he actually done?
I don't know, nothing really. He's just not.
Done anything wrong?
He works for TalkSport, doesn't he? Poor Gad. Great. It's been great having you, Jules. Hope you're well. Have a great
All good, mate. It's only boxing. Don't take it too seriously, people. Yeah. Don't be too hateful with the emails because we've
keep them coming.
We're not wanting to give Tyson Fury a rub down. So you take care, everybody.
All right. Cheers, pal.
Cheers, buddy.
Right. And that, I'm afraid, is that. It's been a long day. 20 past 10. What's that? 16 hours, 20 minutes. Right? Superman. Well, peace out. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. Booyaka.
Porky's Corner is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Site Solutions. They are specialists in civil engineering and demolition contracts for the construction industry. Interested parties should visit their website or contact Porky's Corner for a referral at porkycorner@mail.com.